Hi, everyone. We are insanely excited about this next panel that I'm super, super honored to be here with Sammy, allowing you guys to have access to it. And I always talk about this story, and I'll talk about two parts of the story. One is that story that I always share with everyone about when I was a young girl in college in Boston, and I called the 1-800 number of Vogue, and a girl by the name Lauren Davis picked up the phone, and she told me that I had to apply a year after. And I was like, oh, amazing. I'm applying for next year. And I sent her my pathetic resume that had absolutely nothing in fashion. Actually, everything that was in the resume was kind of made up about things that were non-existent. And I get there to Vogue, and she emails me 10 days later, and she's like, there's been an opening. Can you be here tomorrow? And I'm like, I call my mom to Nicaragua, and I'm like, I need to go to New York tomorrow. There's been an opening for an internship. And obviously, this is back in 2001. This is before any social media that we have today. But of course, I mean, everything that I would do is like I would memorize Vogue like a Bible. So I knew who everyone was, and I got there, and I remember seeing Armand and Tony, and I remember seeing all these people, and I was like, oh my God, that's Tony Goodman. Oh my God, that's Sally Singh. And I remember she's like, how do you know all this? I'm like, what do you mean? That's all I do. I know exactly what they look like. And anyway, she's like, walks me through the Vogue closet, and I was like, I cannot believe I'm in the Vogue closet. She's like, sweetie, you're gonna be spending a lot of time here packing stuff, and you cannot be wearing those Prada shoes. And I was like, yeah, I probably need to bring sneakers. So that's my story with Lauren. She's been a big, big supporter of Latin American Fashion Summit. Every time that a winner of the Pitch to LAFS wins, they get a trunk show opportunity. She's been a huge supporter. And then in the case of Johanna Ortiz, when Sammy and I had just this idea, when you have an idea, very few people really believe in you and get on board. And I remember Sammy and I, we went to Paris, we met with her and Kata and the rest of her team. We told her about this big dream we had, and immediately she didn't even question us. She was like, I want to support you, I want to help you. Of course, because when you've made it, that's what you do. You want to support and help and collaborate. So for me, it's a big honor because I think that matchmaking of that success story of what Johanna has created and the support that Moda has given to all of you creatives has changed the entire ecosystem of the Latin American industry. And also, it's inspired me and Sammy to create this platform because we started hearing voices of many of you, but that needed someone to tell their stories to the right people. So it is my huge honor to present Lauren Santo Domingo and Johanna Ortiz and Armand Limnander.
Hello. Thank you all so much for being here. What an amazing crowd. I want to start by thanking everyone at the Latin American Fashion Summit for bringing us together. I think it's really important what they're doing, community building, bringing notoriety to Latin America. So thank you all for being here, and thank you to Latin American Fashion Summit. The panel today is how Lauren Santo Domingo and Johanna Ortiz influenced Latin American fashion around the globe. And I have the easiest job in the world today. I get to sit like you and talk to them and learn from them and hear about everything they've done to create the amazing brands that we know and love so much. So I want to just start by the beginning, just giving a little bit of background. I'm sure you're all familiar with both Lauren and Johanna, but Lauren is the co-founder and chief brand officer of Moda Operandi, which, as I'm sure you know, is the only platform, the only fashion platform that allows you to buy designer fashion before it's in the stores. And Lauren also has a background in magazines. She has a very interesting background because she really can speak to the industry from a variety of angles. She has been an editor. She's very closely associated with Vogue. So she's been in the print world. She's been in the commerce world. She's been an editor. She's been a buyer. She really can see the industry from all sides. And Johanna, of course, has an amazing brand, has existed since 2003, a huge success story, not just in South America, but I would say for any emerging designer around anywhere in the world. Her business has grown over the years and now has about 350 employees in Colombia. And she did a collaboration with H&M. She's been invited to the White House. She's been invited to the United Nations as someone who is really helping to shape the global fashion industry and open it up. So let's start with a round of applause for our two candidates. And by the way, this is also the Colombian fashion panel, in case you hadn't figured out. I'm Colombian. I was born and raised in Colombia. Johanna obviously is Colombian, and Lauren is an adopted Colombian.
Colombian. She has a Colombian passport.
Officially Colombian. And by the way, I have to say, I've known Lauren for many years. She has done more for Colombia than most Colombians I know. She has always supported not just fashion, but crafts. She has supported the country in travel magazines, bringing people to visit. So she really has done a lot for the country. I want to start with you, Johanna. Why don't you just take us through your journey from the beginning? I mean the very beginning. How you started in fashion, where you went to school, how your brand developed over time.
So I decided to study fashion design after a trip to India when I was 18. And the colors and all that surrounded me just made my point of view much more clearer that I wanted to be a fashion designer. I studied here in the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. And actually, after graduating, I stayed here for a while and worked in something that didn't have anything to do with fashion. And it was like in MTV Latino. And it was an amazing opportunity for me to work and to belong to a company where I understood like what working was. And I had the most magnificent mentor at that time that she just told me, Johanna, whatever you do, even serving coffee, you need to do it right and do it with passion. And I followed that, and I've always done everything with passion. I graduated from school and started selling swimsuits out from a bag. I thought that my friends were not wearing the right swimsuits, and actually I loved all the like cruise and resort collections. I've been so tropical. I'm from Cali, and that made it like easy like to see that I envisioned like seeing people dressing up when they were going like for the beach or beach to bar. And I started being a resort designer for a while. And then I started like dressing like really nice celebrities from Colombia that I've been always grateful because they were like big supporters. And after them, I got like more people wearing Johanna Ortiz in Colombia. And after that, Lauren came in.
Lauren, why don't you take the story
2014.
from there?
Was that 2014?
How did you meet and what happened after you met?
So I guess it was 2014. I have no concept of time anymore. I'm sure we're all in the same boat. I met Johanna, and she was a successful designer in her own right at that point. Your brand was Pink Philosophy.
We had Pink Philosophy and then Johanna Ortiz, yeah.
So she was doing just fine before she met me. And so I met her, and I understood that she was incredibly talented and very tapped into her audience, and was able to give her audience exactly, what they were looking for in fashion. However, being very closely attuned with American fashion, international fashion. I said, I'd love to work together. Can you, go back to your studio and design a collection for an international woman? Think outside of Colombia, outside of South America. And she came back with a collection. She arrived in my office. I have to be honest, I was kind of prepared to not love it, because that happens sometimes. And she came in, and it was very much like a stop everything sort of moment. The racks came in, I get very excited. I think everyone in the office really understood that what we were looking at was incredibly beautiful, but also a bit ahead of its time. And I think that what she was presenting to us was actually the fashion that we are all still wearing today. She was giving us off the shoulders and ruffles and lifestyle, an at-ease, barefoot glamour, we call it. And I knew it was incredibly special. I also happened to know that Vogue magazine was shooting a cover story in St. Bart's with Mario Testino, and they were looking for clothes just like this. So after sharing it with my buyers, working out exclusive contracts immediately, I sent her to Vogue, and I think one of the dresses
I need
ended
to
up.
interrupt.
Yeah.
When Lauren is when I arrived to Lauren's Moda Operandi's office, that I was super overwhelmed, because I really didn't know how fashion worked in the world. I was from Colombia, and I was like, how does this work? And the night before, I was ironing, and I was preparing myself, as I was presenting my thesis, to, somebody that's gonna say, okay, you're good or you're bad. So I stayed all night long, ironing and doing a lot of my
With
prep.
passion.
Yeah. Prepping everything up. And I really didn't know how it worked. And I arrived, and the Moda team is amazing. And they received us, and they were explaining how it works. And then Lauren says, so Johanna, are you gonna do a collection like this one that you, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. And she's like, do you have everything with you? We wanna shoot the collection. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't have the collection. I have sold the collection, because everyone that is Latin and everyone that has been in Colombia Moda, they know that after the shows, people are coming backstage and are, oh, I want the white dress, I want the blue dress, and those were my samples. Now I learned that samples you never sell. It's and I was searching, calling my friends, oh, you bought the dress, I need to take it back, Lawrence wants to see it. So this is, it's a complete story of how Lauren then told me, I want you to meet friends of mine that work in Vogue. And I'm like, Lauren, how should I be prepared? Oh, yeah, you need to come tomorrow at 12 at my office. You need to be prepared. And I'm like, oh my God.
So I think this is a really interesting story.
I remember though when they
because-
called me from Vogue, and they were like, this is amazing. Where did you find her?
What I find really interesting about this story is that everyone tends to have this idea that the really hard thing about a designer is being discovered. But being discovered is just the beginning. It's not the end at all. That's when the real work starts. So let's say that this not of being discovered because you were a successful designer in Colombia already, but this is a moment where you were at Vogue, something that hadn't happened before. Tell us what happens next, because that's the really hard part. So how do you go from being a Latin American designer, selling in Colombia, selling in a few other places in Latin America, to growing your brand, growing your business, and having impact on a global scale?
So, and it's not because Lauren's like sitting near me right now, it's because I really feel it. Lauren has been that mentor that at the moment was like guiding me and telling me like, this is right, this is not right, and this is doing well, this doesn't. I mean, I had the opportunity to hear like the advice and be open to the advice as well as a creative. I mean, as a creative, I think that we need to be creative, but we also need to know about how to build a company, how to make it work, how to do production, how to do like all of what surrounds the fashion business. It's only not like doing a sketch and that's it. It's like the whole story about it.
Yeah, I remember when she had this one top, the blue and white shirting off the shoulder blouse, the Tulum blouse. And before we put it up on Moda, we have this magical trunk show experience where we put the clothes and then the orders are taken and then the designer produces the collection, which is a dream come true for a young designer, but it can also be the kiss of death if the designer is not able to produce. So I knew immediately that this blouse was going to be an immediate hit, and I remember like really seriously saying, Johanna, can you produce this? You know, we're gonna have hundreds of thousands of orders. Can you do this? She did, obviously.
Yeah, and then it was like amazing.
Which is not an easy thing to do, to pull off.
But also, I also want to say, not only did you do it, but you did it from Colombia with Colombian craftsmanship, with Colombian manufacturing, which is not an obvious thing. And in fact, it's become a huge part of your brand, making sure that that stays that way. Can you give us a little bit of insight about how that developed? It must have been very hard if you had a small brand to all of a sudden go back to Colombia and say, listen, we need to make 10,000 of these blouses and they all have to look exactly like this sample.
So Johanna Ortiz is a vertical integrated company that does everything. I mean, we do everything from Cali, Colombia. The knits we do in Peru. And now we have a collaboration with leather and other goods with Argentina, with Rocio. And actually, I thought that working in Colombia and giving a little back to my community where I am from and where I live, and it was like just like it had to be that way. So we founded 4 years ago La Escuela Johanna Ortiz, that is like one of my most enduring projects. That is how to professionalize seamstresses and hand labor and artisans and everything, so they can produce and do, I mean, the same thing that we show, that we can like also produce it in volume. So at the time when we started the Tulum top, we were producing like 4,000 pieces a year. Now we're closing this year like around like 50,000. So it's been a great story for me that I can support. It's 80% women, 380 people that work with me. So this is not a Johanna Ortiz story, it's a teamwork story.
And I just quickly want to bring in one other statistic into the mix. Lauren, how many brands do you carry in Moda Operandi, more or less?
I mean, I think we have like, including home and fine jewelry, probably over 500.
And you have designers like Balenciaga and all?
Yeah, so we have, Valentino, aside from emerging designers, Valentino, Balenciaga, Prada, you name it. But the number one, the most units that we've ever sold of one designer is Johanna Ortiz. Did you know that?
It's really, it's really an interesting statistic, I think, because it also speaks to the fact of an evolution we've seen in the industry that kind of coincided with your rise, which is that I think people are looking for authenticity and they're looking for design and ideas that come from all over the world. I think the idea that things only come from the United States and Europe is outdated, thankfully, and I think there's a real appetite for creativity and ideas and points of view and aesthetics that come from different places. I think you can see it just from what Johanna and Lauren are wearing. The clothes have a soul. They have a point of view that is very specific, that it's Johanna's point of view, but that at the same time you feel is Latin American. I wanted to ask you, Lauren, going back to what Johanna was saying about her school and producing in Cali and giving back to her community, that also seems to be very important nowadays. Do you find it with your brands, with the work that you do with other designers, that it's important for consumers now to know how and where the clothes are made as much as what they look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially with the younger consumer, the impact that they have is very important. That said, I think that part of what makes Johanna so special is it's her team, her Colombian team. It's the production, which is in Colombia, but it's also this incredible point of view that she has, that it's a true lifestyle brand in a way that I haven't seen a lifestyle brand created from scratch, at least in our generation in terms of fashion. You know, the big designers, Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, we haven't seen designers really build a lifestyle brand. So Johanna is really the first one that's transcended and built an international lifestyle brand, and by doing that, it's by presenting this lifestyle that is so true to who she is, that it allows all of us to really imagine ourselves in this life, this barefoot glamour in the tropics. And that's really, what we always say, it's so cliche, but it really allows you to dream. And I think that it's so true to her. We do see a lot of designers coming who are trying to create a lot of a similar vibe. But the reason that Johanna is so successful is so true to who she is and to her team, who are as lovely to work with as they look. And she's really surrounded herself with an incredible team, and has created this lifestyle that we can all really share in, and that it's just fun. We always joke in our office, we say that there's a party in every dress, and it's very true.
You remember they told me a story that it was, I think, the resort 15 or 16 in Moda Operandi. They used to ring a bell when it was like a good truck show. Remember?
Yeah.
That was like 2015 or something. When they have when you're like standing up with the designers that you have admired since you're like, you look up, and I was like, oh my God. And I called my friend Kata, and I'm like, Kata, I just launched in the trunk show in Moda Operandi. Can you buy something? Because I don't know if I'm gonna sell anything. She's there, and she's like, yeah, I'll buy something. And I'm like, yeah, like at least it was one person's gonna buy something. So you never know. And then that was like a super success story, and they told me, no, we rang the bell. It was like the best trunk show, and we were standing with Dolce and Valentino and all of the other amazing talented designers around the world. You are like, oh my God, what I should do for my next collection. And she said, I know Lauren's like, so your husband's gonna hate me because you're never gonna stop. You remember that?
I remember. I was like, I hope Cesar is not mad at me because you are a full-blown international fashion designer, and the wife and the mom part, you're gonna have to juggle a bit. And I wondered, did you know, did you have any idea that it would happen like this, or no? So it was a complete shock.
At all. And what was nice with Moda, they were like those real partners. So we did different collaborations. So we did my first line of bridal. We launched our first vacation collection in London in Moda Muse, like 2016. And then we did home that we shoot in Cartagena.
Swim.
And then swim. I mean,
to your roots.
Yeah, back to my roots. Swim, and actually, they've been just those amazing partners that I wish all of you creative and designers would love to have. I've been really fortunate.
Johanna, quickly, how do you keep, Lauren brought up a great point, how do you keep a brand going for not just to have a hit item, but how do you keep a brand going for 10, 15, 20 years? Like how do you, you have a very core aesthetic design philosophy, how do you evolve it, how do you keep it going?
I mean, women, my culture, what surrounds me, keeps me really grounded when I design. I mean, as I said before, my team is 80% women, and I feel that when, as a woman, I'm designing for women, we can relate in what we need and when I do a collection, it's like, what would I use for this? What would I pack for that? What would somebody or my friend that has this style wear for this party? And I just find that being true to yourself and true to what you like and what you love, it's like a success story. I think that when Latin American designers started looking to the roots instead of looking out probably to American fashion or European fashion, it's when you really go from what you really deliver something from the heart.
For us, when we look at Johanna's collection, when we know that it's really going to be a successful collection, is that when we can look at a piece, and I think this is advice for whatever anyone's doing, that we can look at a piece and we say, that's Johanna. Like, you just know, and there's such a strong point of view, and it's distinguishable from any other designer. And I think whether it's in your life, in your brand, in your personal brand, being able to be truly, truly distinguishable, and that anytime someone looks and that is so Johanna, that is so Armand, that's so Moda, that's really when you transcend, and I feel like it makes it easier to keep going if you are always trying to meet that criteria.
Well, I was going to end by asking you both to give advice to emerging fashion designers, but I think you just did. Essentially, stay true to yourself. Is there anything else you'd like to add or something I haven't asked you?
As I said, having a great team, because you never know everything, it's super important. I think that in an industry where you need to live a little on the side, egos, and just recognize that probably you don't know everything. So having a great team and having a great sister, as I have, that it's my sister Paola that has been with me since I started. So I mean, it's all about who you are surrounded, and all of them looking towards and working towards the same dream and the same, how do you say meta? Meta? Goal. You're saying goal. Sorry.
And Lauren, I know you found more Latin American designers. I feel you have about 15.
We probably have like 20 Latin American designers now. Johanna was our first. Johanna and Paula Mendoza. We have Sylvia Chirazzi, Hunting Season, Maggie Coragnel, who won last year's prize. So we have a really good.
And so you see it growing, you see it developing in the area. Like, do you sense it really feels different than it did like 15?
There's just a lot of talent, and there's a lot of excitement, and they're presenting something that's very new and very exciting, and it feels exotic too. And
do you feel the whole digital phenomenon has probably made it a lot easier for people to be noticed and for people to
Yeah, I think it's, and that goes to, again, if you can really have a point of view and drive that home, you can be successful. But I think, you know, aside from the digital world, it's just what's in real life. Even Estefania, who was talking about, you know, her being my intern, I think the most important thing is, you know, besides brand, besides digital, are these relationships. There's not a single person that I've encountered through my career, from when I was an intern or I was an assistant to when I was the editor or the founder, that I haven't come across again. And all of those relationships have sort of brought me to where I am, have brought Johanna to where she is, and I think that's probably the most important thing, is especially in a community and an industry like fashion, that these relationships that you build up are so important. And we're all really, listen, we chose this industry. If we wanted to be boring, we'd be in like finance or something. Like, we all choose to be here, so we all are simpatico and are in it together, and to lift people up and bring people along for the ride, I think, is the most important part, but it's also the most fun part, at least for me.
Yeah, I always tell young designers to create, or photographers or stylists or any young creative, to create a group around them so that they can all come up together. Sort of a creative community, the same age, the same interests, and they can all support. And if you look at all the famous designers in history, they all had teams around them that were not necessarily employees, but just like-minded people that collaborate together. I want to leave we have 15 minutes left, and I really want the audience to participate, so I think we should take some questions.
Hi. First off, I just want to say that many people have made the way, like with a shovel. You guys both took like a tractor, and you're making it so much easier for everybody else in this room. So thank you for that. I'm from Dominican Republic. My name is Maria Conchita Arcala, and I help brands tell their stories. And a big, big challenge, and Johanna, I know that this is really going to touch a nerve, because a big challenge when you create a brand, when you create an image, when you create something, it's like a baby. You give birth to it, and it takes a lot of effort. When somebody borrows that baby, or when somebody is too inspired by that baby, it can be a little frustrating. And I would love for you to share things that helped you get through that, because yes, ignore it, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's frustrating. And I want you to give words to all these designers. It's like, okay, Johanna said, when this happens, I'm going to, like a little checklist. What would you recommend?
Well, I mean, at the beginning, when you see things that are like similar, you feel like, oh, so they're accepting what I'm proposing, and I just hope they just like borrow it for a time while they're just looking for the real DNA, because that's what's gonna make them successful. Because I think that when you propose something that it's new and different and there's a space for it, you'll make it through. I think that there's so much talent in our region. Latin America has been known for its feminine, elegant, effortless women. I mean, we all have talent, and there's space for all. So it has to be like a, like a fair, nice, good competition. Everybody proposing different things and proposing to the world our view of Latin America, and just like taking it to women in the world. I think that, I once read that it takes time to find your true DNA, and it's fine to get ideas all over, but then you really need to work, because that's what makes the difference. if you're proposing something new.
Anyone else?
Hello. Hi, my name is Ariana. I am one of the co-founders of P de Palma. We are a concept store where we curate the best Latin American designers and pieces. And we are extremely honored to have Johanna Ortiz in our store. It was a dream come true, and obviously it's also a dream to have an online platform like Moda Operandi where we can have the best designers from Latin America. And we are a small business, and we are right now debating whether we should expand our retail stores because we feel like Latin American pieces have to be touched and seen, or if we should put our effort in growing our online. Thank you.
Where are you located?
So we're located here in Miami at Shops at Merrick Park.
And would you look at other places in Miami or throughout the United States?
We're thinking throughout the United States.
Got it. Well, I would have to come visit. I certainly don't want to give very bad advice, but if you could do the two in tandem, you should always be focusing on your digital. You should always be focusing on making sure that your online experience is always improving.
I think that
Oh, no one has ever told me that I'm not talking loud enough in my entire life. So this is definitely a first. I'm going to tell my husband. He's going to be so happy. So I do not want to give you bad advice, but come see me after. But always focus on digital. There's never going to be a time where shopping online isn't fun or people aren't going to want to do it. So, and if you do something in person, it needs to be really exciting. It needs to be really experiential. And like Armand said, you have to be drawing upon a community that's going to support you and that you're really speaking to a group of people that want to join this community. I think that's the most important thing right now, is to speak to a group of people.
You know something? It always rains when I'm doing something. It's really important for me, you know? It always rains.
I actually have...
But it has always been a good sign of something. I got frustrated from a runway show. I mean, because I couldn't present my collection. It's always raining, so it's good for you girls. It's good that it rains.
And I also have some really exciting news. I don't know if everyone else is going to find this as exciting as I do, but we are never going to change our clocks again. Daylight savings today in the Senate was canceled. So this is it. I'm really excited about this. I think this time is perfect and we never need to change it. So this is it. This is the day. Very excited.
I have one question. Lauren and Johanna, you are gorgeous, beautiful, inspiring. Women recognize you that. Are you aware that your own lifestyle sells your personal lifestyle? Are you aware of that?
Yes, I think so, and I think it speaks to what Armand is that you're building up a community of people. When I was young, I always dreamed of how I wanted to live, how I wanted to dress, how I wanted to be. I always had a very clear idea in my mind. I didn't imagine the business part being so time-consuming, but the life that I wanted to live was very much something that I imagined. And I've always loved fashion. I've always loved emerging designers. And it's just always been something that I'm just the kind of person that wants to share things. You know, like there's some friends who have like beautiful skin and you know that they probably have some like snake serum that they're putting on their skin and they just tell you, oh, I drink a lot of water. I'm not that friend. I will tell you exactly where to go and what to ask for, who not to go to. So I think that impulse of sharing, it's just sort of being an editor. I don't feel that something is good until it's shared. So when I see something that's good, my impulse is to share it and to share it with as many people as possible that I think will enjoy it. And I think that speaks to the success of my businesses. That's just what my impulse is. I want to share. When I met Johanna, my instinct, before I was even thinking about my own business, was that I wanted her to be on the cover of Vogue magazine. That was like, I couldn't, it's just my impulse. It's who I am.
So as intimidating LSD can be, she's a great human being that really enjoys sharing tips, being and like pushing up women and talent and everyone. Like that's one of the passions she has, and she is doing it through Moda Operandi and through like being herself. You know that when I went first, like you all saw The Devil Wears Prada, right? So everyone was like, oh, you're meeting Lauren? And I'm like, yes, I'm meeting Lauren. And then I met her, and I mean, I've seen her in Cartagena and everything, but business-wise and everything, it was a huge support to hear her point of view of what I was doing.
I think if I could add something to what you asked, which I thought was an important question, I think authenticity really is key for everything right now in a creative field. And whether that creator is in front of the camera or behind the camera, a public person or a more private person, you feel when something is authentic. You feel it in a clothing brand, you feel it in a magazine, you feel it in everything. There's something that tells you that there is a level of personality there. I think you see it with everything Lauren does, and you certainly see it also with Johanna's clothes. And I think that is what everyone here has been trying to say is key for young designers as they grow and develop, to really find what their DNA is and stay true to it. We have someone over here.
Hi, my name is Natalia. I'm also from Cali. I live in Barranquilla, have a resort wear brand, Encantadore. And this is much more like a human question, not a businesswoman question. I think I've never doubted about what we as women can achieve. But when you are a mom, that businesswoman has to be transformed. And I think that is like a very big challenge. Can you tell us about how can you balance your life, because you are a mom of 3 and you are a successful woman and you are here and you are with Lauren. Can you give us some advice about being a successful woman and a mom?
Well, Lauren even was in the photo shoot of Home with Beatriz, right? So this is how we handle, like we make them also part of what we do and what we love, and always having the priority, like it's family, it's my 3 boys and my husband, and having the commitment of what really grounds you, that it's family and it's love and it's friends and the people you belong with, and never losing the path just because your brand is being known or successful. It's staying grounded, and I think that family keeps you grounded. Lucas, Joaquin, and Lorenzo are my greatest supporters. They hate that I travel, but now they understand that I have to travel since I live in Cali, that it's not a fashion capital at all. And actually, it's like a little bit of sacrifice. I landed Friday from Paris, and I stayed a weekend with the boys, and I'm here with you, and I'm having the most amazing time doing it, being a mother and being a designer.
hello. My name is Carolina. I'm from Mexico. I'm 20 years old, and I'm currently a student at Arts Institute here in Miami. And I just want to ask you what's something, like an honest advice. What would you say to your younger self that was studying? I want to make it in the industry.
Sorry? What advice would you give to your younger self? To my younger self? Oh. What I did, that it almost was the most grounding moment in my life. I had 2 stores in Colombia, and this was 2013 probably. And I walked into the store a Friday, and I was, what would I wear for this event that I have? And then I realized I wasn't gonna wear anything that I was producing, and it was frustrating. And then I said, I won't produce anything that I wouldn't wear, and that's been what I've done. It's like I deliver my creativity from myself, from my heart, and from the women that gather around me. So that helped me. It's a nice, would you wear it? Where would you wear it? And then everything starts leading to a way.
And my advice would be, I was actually given this advice, and I always thought about it before I did anything, but my father told me, he said that life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And when I was your age, when I was 20, I had very big dreams, big ambitions, and I tend to get ahead of myself at times. And I started my company when I was 35 years old, so I had 15 years of experience in the fashion industry before I even considered doing something like that. And I really took my time, and I never put limits on myself. And I think that at young people today have an incredible amount of pressure. You're seeing Kylie Jenner's 3-year-old has her own Bentley. I think that young people are expected to be really successful at a really young age, and I just don't think that's realistic. And to give yourself time, and that life is a marathon.
Hi, I am Bea Gasca. I am also from Mexico. I am a businesswoman, and I also do a lot of activism related with women's rights that completely fill my heart all the time. And I am wondering, now that I am listening to you, Johanna and Lauren, how does a woman lead? When I met Estefania a couple of years ago at Necker Island, I totally saw on her how she lead. And I've seen how this became what it is now. How do you lead, Johanna and Lauren? What is different in your style of leadership as a businesswoman?
So I really don't know if the word is leadership. I think that the word, it's more, for me it has been passion, and it has been, it's being inspired by women for women. I'm really an advocate of women empowerment, and working with so many women, it's giving me that essence of how we can be mothers, wives, how can we work and be businesswomen, and as well do all of the things that we really love. And I think that that's something that is within us. So it's more like the passion you put every day in whatever you do. I don't know if I answered your question though. I didn't really hear it.
I think we have time for one more question,
Hi, I'm
and
here.
unfortunately it'll be time.
Hi, thank you for this panel. My name is Sigal. I own a resort wear brand based in Miami. And my question to you was specifically, Johanna, about prints and when you started bringing in more prints into your brand, did you create those? Did you partner with a print designer? You have such an iconic print-driven look. So I was interested in knowing more about that design aspect in your brand.
Okay, I actually, when I start designing, that's the first thing I do. I do color and prints. And that's where I get like all the collection to start off. I'm really into color. And I have, my first, where I first started was diseño textil. So I'm really passionate about textiles. And then we have built like a really nice team that works in towards like all the prints and all the textiles that we do. And that's the first thing we do. Basically, we are always inspired in all the tropics and all that surrounds us. But it's also like different ingredients of around the world. So probably we can just be inspired with ICATs, or we can be inspired with molas, or it's all around the world. It's not only Colombia, but then we try to interpret them and make them a little bit of our own, so they feel new. But it's my favorite creating process. It's doing prints and color.
Thank you all very much. I think we've run out of time.